In this video, I'm sharing with you the 5 things I wish I knew when I started out as a business leader. And then I'm going to give you actionable tips how you can use these to improve yourself as a leader today. My name is Leon, and I started my leadership career at age 17. I then went on to build a successful 20-year-long corporate career leading organizations of up to 3,500 people in 4 different countries. Now I run a consulting brand, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million founders reinvent themselves and become next generation leaders. Now let's dive in. Number 1, mission, vision, and values give perspective. First of all organizations, big or small, need a mission and a vision statement. It is like knowing your destination before you're embarking on a journey. You want to be relentlessly clear and write down why your company exists, what your company is doing and how, and for whom you're doing it. You only know how far you need to travel when you know where you're headed. And having these statements in place guides decision-making, sets priorities, and aligns everyone in the organization towards a common goal. Your team will love you for it when they have a North Star to go after, and they can make their own decisions in how to get there. You want your team to have autonomy because that is what raises creativity and drives innovation. Then to give people that sense of belonging together, you want 5 ± 2 values that describe the personality of your organization. With that, you attract the right people, you stick them together, and they also stay. Now, here are some questions for you to ask yourself when you're writing down your mission and your vision statement. Why did we start this business in the first place? What are our dreams and hopes? What are we inspired to change in this world and why? And how are we contributing towards the greater good? Now then look at what your organizational values are and ask yourself, how do we want work to be approached? How do we want to interact with each other? And how do we want to be perceived outside of the company? Now let's go on to number 2, strategy and culture. You have probably heard this discussion always that culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's as if they are enemies, but in reality, they are best buddies. A strong culture bolsters a successful strategy, and a well-executed plan reinforces culture. So you want to balance them both and create a thriving organization that way. Now, let me give you some actionable tips. Tip number 1, involve your team in your strategic planning. Allow their insights, their ideas to help shape the future of your organization. This not only makes your strategy more robust, it also builds a culture of inclusion and ownership in the same time. Now, tip number 2, clearly communicate your strategy. Be transparent about where the company is headed and how you plan to get there, because that is what creates trust, and that is what aligns everyone in one direction. Tip number 3, celebrate the successes that align with your strategy and your culture. Because when a team member's actions reflect the organization's culture and contribute towards the strategy's success, you must recognize them. That will foster a culture of recognition and reinforces the importance of your strategy. So let's put it this way. Be intentional in nurturing your culture, because it's not something you want to leave over to chance. And instead, think of it as a garden. With the right amount of care and attention and resources, you will see it blossom. And that will enhance then also the effectiveness of your strategy. And that's the beauty of this duo. They're not just buddies. Culture and strategy are best friends. And when they are nurtured properly, you will build a thriving organization. Now let's go on to point number 3, the art of planning. It's not just about the plan, but it's about the planning process. It's about being nimble and quick and effective in your planning. In the business world, static plans often find themselves outdated. Circumstances change rapidly in the industry and in the markets. So agility and flexibility are your best allies in this scenario. Now, how do you actually put that into action? So let me share your 3 actionable tips that you can use to improve your planning habits. Tip number 1, adopt a lean approach. Lean methodology comes from the manufacturing industry, and that is all about minimizing waste. If you use it in planning, that means you can reduce the time spent on the unnecessary details. So you start by outlining your high-level goals and strategies, and then you dive only into the specifics that you want to execute and not all the possibilities. Tip number 2, embrace the pivot. Keep an eye out on the market, on the industry, on the trends, on what your customers tell you. Because if you notice shifts that way, then don't be afraid to just pivot your plans. Plans are there to be changed. So remember that the pivot doesn't mean that the original plan was bad. It simply means that you're adjusting it to stay ahead of the curve and surf the wave. Tip number 3, use a rolling plan. Unlike a fixed annual plan, a rolling plan continuously looks forward. This allows you to adapt, based on the latest information and circumstances, and that gives you this ability to be agile and resilient in the face of change. The OKR framework is a very powerful way to do this. Now let's go to the 4th point that I wish I knew when I started out as a leader, and that is leading yourself. It might sound a bit surprising because as leaders, we are responsible for guiding a team and an organization or even a community. And our focus as leaders tend to be always on others. But if you think about it, before you can effectively lead others, you must first lead yourself. Now, why is this so important? Well, picture this. Imagine you're on an airplane and the cabin pressure suddenly drops. What do they always say? Put on your oxygen mask before assisting others. Well, that's the same principle that applies to leadership. You can't pour from an empty cup. You need to take care of yourself first to effectively lead others. But what does leading yourself actually entail? Well, here are 3 actionable tips to help you better understand this. Tip number 1, practice self-reflection. This involves taking some time each day to reflect on your actions, decisions, feelings. And that could be as simple as just maintaining a journal where you write down your thoughts. This process allows you to understand yourself better, train your self-awareness, and become better at identifying the areas for improvement. Tip number 2, prioritize self-care. Remember, your physical, your mental, your emotional, and I would even say your spiritual health are crucial. Ensure that you're eating well, get enough sleep, exercise regularly, take breaks. It's not about being selfish. It's about maintaining your well-being at the best level so you can be the best leader possible. Tip number 3, set personal goals. Just like you set strategic goals for your team and your organization, it is equally important to set personal goals because that keeps you motivated and you focused and allows for personal growth alongside your professional growth. So when you take care of yourself and you achieve your goals, you will also be inclined to achieve your organizational goals. So by leading yourself first, you set an example for your team. You demonstrate that it's important to practice self-care and self-improvement. And you show that personal growth will lead to success. In doing so, you're becoming a better leader for yourself and also for your team. The 5th and the last one on our list is not less important than the others. This is about dedicating time to think. In the hustle and bustle of daily tasks, it is easy to get tunnel vision, focus solely on execution, and lose the oversight on the bigger picture. But just as crucial as doing and executing is, taking time to think, reflect, and strategize is just as important. I suggest to spend about 20% of your time on thinking, and that is at least 30 to 60 minutes daily depending on your schedule. But how can you maximize this thinking time? Well, here are again 3 actionable tips. Tip number 1, schedule your thinking time. Yeah, you heard me right. Block out time every day in your schedule that you focus only on thinking. That might be in the morning when your mind is fresh, or maybe it's in the afternoon when you want to take a break from your tasks. The key is to plan everyday thinking time and to stay consistent. Now, tip number 2, create your thinking environment. Find a space where you can think without interruptions or distractions. It could be a quiet chair in your room, in your office, maybe in a park or a coffee shop. But only go there and that place when you are going to think. That way your mind remembers that is thinking time for you. So I want you to remember that thinking is also work. And it's probably even the most important aspect of your role as a leader. So give yourself this time and, just see what positive ripple effects will happen when you apply that in your work and drive your team. Well, that's a wrap. Do you want to get powerful leadership lessons weekly into your mailbox? Click the link here to sign up for a Refresh Rethink, your leadership newsletter to reinvent yourself as a next generation leader. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.